The cry had already vanished by the time dawn spilled across the desert, yet the bruises still burned deep. Mara lay face down in the dust beside a cracked stream bed, her breathing ragged, her cheeks streaked with the dirt and tears of the long night. Brent had struck her so hard she saw stars. He'd taken her purse, her last coins, her horse, even her boots. Her stomach had been empty for 2 days, her tongue dry as ash. He spat near her and rode off laughing into the dark. When morning came, the air bit cold, the sun cut cruel. Mara dragged herself toward a small blur in the distance, half buried under drifting sand. A cabin, forgotten and splintered, its windows shattered, its roof sagging. Maybe it could hide her from the heat, or from the shame of still breathing. She'd stopped praying hours ago, but a small piece of her still wished someone might find her. She staggered through the doorway, legs shaking. The place smelled of dust and memory, a table gray with time, a bed frame rusted by years. The silence was heavy enough to ache. She dropped to her knees, clutching her stomach as hunger twisted it cruel. Her voice cracked in whispers. "I can't take it anymore. God, please." Her head hit the floorboards, and for the first time she hoped she wouldn't open her eyes again. But fate wasn't done with her. Later that morning, a shadow broke the doorway. A tall man stepped in, brushing desert from his old coat. His beard was silver, his hands worn, his eyes dim with quiet sorrow. Abel Kane hadn't entered this cabin in more than 10 years. Every plank still remembered his wife's pain. Every nail still held a piece of her last breath. She had died here, giving birth. He had come only because he finally found the strength to face it again. What he found wasn't a ghost. It was a woman, alive but shattered. He froze. The sight tore open wounds long buried. Mara flinched when she saw him. Her voice trembled. "Please, don't hurt me." Abel crouched low, his tone calm. "Ain't here to hurt you, miss." She tried to stand, but her knees failed. Tears streaked her swollen face. "Please help me. I'll do anything. You can take me if you want, just don't leave me here." Abel's jaw set hard. He'd seen hopelessness before, but never like this. He took his canteen, loosened the lid, and pressed it to her lips. "Drink first," he said. Water ran down her chin as she drank like she'd forgotten how. He waited until she stopped, then scanned the room. "This place ain't safe. Coyotes'll find you before sundown." Mara shook her head weakly. "I don't care. I got nowhere else." Abel sighed, eyes drifting to the walls that once heard his wife's voice. Now they carried only the broken breath of a stranger. He extended his hand. "Come on." "You ain't dying here today?" She hesitated, shaking. "Why help me?" He paused, searching for words. Some things couldn't be spoken plain, 'cause no one helped her when she needed it, he finally said. She didn't know who her was, but she saw the grief behind his eyes, deep enough to drown in. He lifted her gently, set her on his horse, and began the slow ride back across the sand. The plains stretched silent behind them. The cabin kept its secrets close. As the wind rose, Mara glanced at the man beside her and wondered, had she truly been saved, or had she just stepped into another story she'd never walk free from? The ride back was slow and wordless. Her head sagged against the saddle horn, eyes fluttering shut. Every rut in the road pulled a faint sound from her lips. Abel kept his gaze on the trail ahead, the morning light cutting long gold lines through the dust. He hadn't brought a soul home since the day his wife passed. The thought of another voice inside those walls felt strange, but leaving that girl to die out there felt worse. By the time they reached his place, the sun hung high and harsh. The ranch sat small against the endless dirt. Fences slanted, a lonely barn, a windmill that creaked with every gust. He lifted Mara down from the horse, carried her through the door. She was lighter than he'd expected, her skin hot with fever. He laid her gently on the bed, poured water into a tin cup. "Take a sip," he said. She obeyed, hands trembling. Abel pulled a worn blanket over her and turned to light the stove. Smoke and dry pine filled the room. He made a bit of broth, slow and plain. The scent drifted through the cabin. Warm, human, something the place hadn't felt in years. When he handed it to her, Mara hesitated, eyes wide with worry. "You don't owe me a thing," he said quietly. "I ain't that kind of man." Her lips parted, confused. "I just thought, folks out here don't do nothing for free." Abel gave a faint, tired grin. "You'll work when you're strong again. Maybe cook, maybe sew a shirt or two. That'll be fair enough." She studied him for a long while, then whispered, "Thank you." That night the wind howled low across the plains. Abel sat by the fire, mending an old saddle strap. Behind him came the sound of steady breathing. For the first time in years, the house didn't feel empty. Mara woke sometime near midnight. She saw him sleeping in the chair by the door, hat tilted low. Something in that quiet shape made her chest ache. No man had ever protected her without asking for something back. It frightened her more than the dark ever could. When morning broke, the air smelled of rain and coffee. Abel handed her a cup, voice calm. "You're safe here, Mara. You do your part and you stay as long as you need." She nodded, holding the cup with both hands. Her eyes dropped to the floor, but inside her something small began to stir. It wasn't hunger or fear this time, it was trust, fragile as a new flame in cold air. And Abel, though he said nothing, felt that same flicker deep inside. Outside, the windmill turned slow. The land was still again. But stillness never lasted long in Texas. Somewhere out there, someone had heard that Mara was still breathing, and he was already on his way back. 3 days later, Mara could stand firm again. The bruises had dulled, though her heart still trembled. Abel hitched the wagon, saying he needed supplies. "Come along," he told her. "Seeing folks might do you some good." She agreed, though her stomach twisted at the thought of being seen. The town was small, sunburnt, full of noise and stares. Every porch had eyes behind it. The smell of dust and coffee tangled with the sound of boots and horses. Abel headed into the general store while Mara followed, list in hand. For a brief moment, the world seemed calm. Then a voice slid through the air, cold as a snake. "Well, look what the wind dragged in." "Brent." He stood across the street, grin crooked eyes mean. He looked her up and down like she was nothing. "Didn't figure you'd crawl this far, girl." Mara froze. Her body remembered the pain before her mind caught up. Abel turned, watching the color drain from her face. Then she stepped forward, her anger trembling in her voice. "You stole my money. You left me to die." The street went quiet. People turned. Brent just laughed. "Money? That was mine." "Sweetheart," Brent sneered. "You took my purse while I was sleeping." The murmurs started before she could speak. Someone spat near her feet. Out here, a woman's truth didn't stand long once doubt took hold. Brent stepped closer. "You gonna hand it back, or should I take it from your hide?" His hand rose, but Abel's caught it midair. "That's enough," he said. Voice quiet, but heavy as iron. Brent tried to wrench free, but Abel's grip held firm. "You got no proof?" "Old man," Brent barked. "I got enough," Abel replied. Eyes cold as riverstone. The street went still. Then the sheriff's boots crunched down the boardwalk. "Let him go, Kane." Abel did. Slow, deliberate. The lawman looked from Brent to Mara, saw no proof either way, and sighed. "Both of you cool down. No fights in my town," Brent grinned. "Hear that, old man? Keep your strays close to home." He turned and walked off laughing, though his eyes burned hate. Abel looked at Mara. "You all right?" She nodded, though her lip trembled. What she saw in his face wasn't rage for himself, it was for her. They rode back in silence. The road home felt longer. Neither spoke, but both knew this wasn't finished. Some men don't quit, especially when pride's been cut in public, and sure enough, that night a shadow waited past the fence line, watching their cabin light flicker against the wind. "So if you're still with me, partner, pour a cup of tea and tell me where you're listening from. If you'd like to keep riding these Wild West nights, hit that subscribe button, 'cause Mara and Abel's story had only just begun." The wind came strange that night. Too quiet, too cold for summer. Abel felt it deep in his bones, that gut-born warning. He'd seen men like Brent before. They never stayed gone. Mara sat inside sewing by lamplight. Abel stepped out to check the horses, then froze. Footsteps. The soft creak of leather. Two shadows near the fence. He blew out the lamp and let darkness swallow the yard. The moon gave just enough to see the steel flash of knives. Brent's voice slid through the dark. "Come on out, old man. I only want what's mine." Abel said nothing. He grabbed the shotgun from the porch and moved quiet as dust. The second man kicked the gate. "Don't make this hard. Hand over the girl and maybe you keep breathing." Inside, Mara froze. Her needle shook in her hand. Through the window she saw Abel, tall, still, gun steady. The sight of him there made her chest ache. Brent spat. "You gonna shoot me, Kane? Over some lying thief?" Abel's tone stayed calm. "Step 1 foot closer and we'll find out." Then everything broke loose. Brent lunged. The knife flashed. Abel swung the shotgun hard, cracking Brent across the ribs. The blade tore through his sleeve, drew blood, but he didn't flinch. The second man charged from the side, yelling. Abel spun, using the gun like a club, striking him square in the jaw. The man hit dirt. Brent came again. Abel caught his wrist, twisted till the knife dropped. He snatched a rope off the fence, bound Brent's hands tight. Neighbors were shouting now. Lights blinked on across the field. Someone yelled that the sheriff was coming. Brent cursed. Writhing, but Abel stood over him, shirt torn, blood running down his arm, voice steady as stone. Next time you come for her, bring a coffin. Minutes later, the sheriff arrived. He saw the blades, the bruises, the witnesses. Brent was hauled up, spitting dust and fury. The lawman nodded to Abel. Good work keeping her safe, Kane. You ought to rest that arm. When the crowd faded, the windmill creaked again. Mara stepped out, eyes wet, voice trembling. You could have let them take me. Abel shook his head. Ain't my way, she smiled through her tears. For the first time, she wasn't scared of the dark, but as dawn broke, Abel knew peace never stayed long out here. What happened tonight would change everything between them. By morning, the ranch lay quiet again. The ground still carried the scars of the fight, but the danger was gone. Abel sat on the porch, arm bandaged, staring toward the open fields. The air smelled of dust and wet grass after fear. Mara brought him coffee. Her hands were steady now. He smiled faintly. Guess I made a mess of things, she smiled back. Guess you did. But you saved me again. He shook his head. Didn't save you, Mara. You did that yourself. I just gave you room to stand. The words stayed with her all day. As the sun climbed, she cleaned the porch, fed the horses, hung fresh sheets for the first time since she came. She felt for once like she belonged. That afternoon, Abel walked her back to the old cabin where he'd found her. The door still hung crooked. The walls still carried ghosts. He ran his hand over the worn boards. This was my wife's place, he said softly. Couldn't step inside for years. But when I saw you that morning, I figured maybe it was time to stop running from ghosts. Mara's eyes glistened. I thought I was just trying to survive, she whispered. Turns out I was looking for somewhere someone might see me as more than what I lost. Abel turned to her, voice low. Well, you're seen now. You're home. The weeks rolled on. Together they fixed fences, planted a patch of green, rebuilt the roof plank by plank. Laughter began to fill the empty air. Every scar, every broken piece became part of something whole. Sometimes at dusk, Abel sat watching the fields burn gold beneath the setting sun. He'd see Mara moving through the barn, strong and sure, and think how strange this life could be. You can lose everything and still find something worth living for. If you've got the grit to stay, that's the lesson of this land. Strength ain't always loud. Sometimes it's just choosing to rise again, to believe again, to love again. So tell me, friend, where are you listening from tonight? Sitting by the window? Out on the porch under the stars? Pour yourself a cup of tea and take a breath. If this story touched you, give it a like, and if you ain't yet, hit that subscribe button so we can keep riding through the Wild West together, one tale at a time, because somewhere out there, past the dust and wind, another story's waiting, and maybe, just maybe, it's yours.